All right, guys, we are live. UFC 289 post-fight show on Sherdog.com. I'm your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I am doing really well. Note to everybody out there, I've already said this to you. It is storming like a mother effer out here. My internet and power have both been intermittently flickering. So if I disappear, hold down the fort, talk amongst yourselves. But otherwise, I cannot wait to dig into this stuff, man.
Yeah, his internet has been as shoddy as Irene Aldana's game plan tonight. So, I this might be a tough show because as some of you guys know, I have another job where I can get called in at any time. I'm rolling on like 2 hours sleep today, and it's pretty late. I've been up since like 3 a.m. Yesterday. Yeah, so but anyways, let's get into it. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We'll try to get to you guys as much as possible. We had an $80 pay-per-view that a lot of people weren't excited about. A lot of people are complaining. A lot of people showing their ages, talking about the worst main event and all this. They forget the Ted Williams versus Steve Justin days, but Andre Arlovsky versus Paul Budatello and Justin Eiler's days. But let's get into it. Amanda Nunes defended her bantamweight title against Irene Aldana, winning an absolute dominant victory. Won all 5 rounds. I think I tossed in a 10-8 round. It just, to me, heading into this fight, I know a lot of people sold it as, Amanda Nunes better not stand and box with Irene Aldana, and they made it sound like she was going against Layla Ali in the boxing. To me, this was just another opponent for her. There's just Demetrius Johnson collecting another belt against Ali Bagatinov and Tim Elliott, and I felt the same way about this. Like just another person that will add to the Sherdog fight finder that Amanda Nunes beat. Agree or disagree?
I agree, and I feel bad saying that because Aldana had a great run. She earned this title shot. I mean, you and I both, and hell, Amanda Nunes herself thought that Aldana deserved this title shot instead of the third Juliana Pena fight anyway. But I thought she posed different challenges to Nunes than Pena did, but not necessarily a bigger challenge. Or hell, for that matter, Raquel Pennington, who was sitting in the front row, also presented a different challenge, but not necessarily a greater challenge.
Sure.
But at this point in Nunes' career, where we said leading up to this, any fight could be her last, and lo and behold, it was her last. I'd rather see her against a fresh challenger. So this was the fight I most wanted to see that was available to make, even if I'd known that this was going to be Nunes' last fight, even if she said it 6 months ago. Of the available people, without the UFC going out and re-signing Cyborg or something, this is probably what I would have picked. So yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah, totally agree. It became pretty apparent pretty early that Aldana's only chance of winning was to land one power shot, but she didn't help her chance because she wasn't throwing power shots very often.
Single digit strike totals in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, it was really bad. She seemed like, at first I thought, well, maybe it's a game plan thing. What maybe if she can really lower the volume, maybe Nunes lowers the volume. You don't have a lot of action. You're facing the better fighter, so if you have a low volume, maybe that's when you steal rounds, kind of thing. Like running the ball in football, where you're trying to keep the power. Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison in this high-powered offense off the field, kind of thing. I've seen it in wrestling and stuff. You really kind of stall the clock, and then you try to steal at the end. And then it was shortly after you just go like, no, she's just happy to be here. Like and the moment was too big for her. She couldn't rise. Like some people, like her teammate Alexa Grasso, wasn't scared of I can't think of her name because I'm on 3 hours sleep. The
Valentina Shevchenko.
She went right at her. She took the fight to her. That was not Aldana. She stepped back. She let Amanda Nunes jab her up. Amanda Nunes was landing power shots. Amanda Nunes beat her everywhere. I mean, they get to the clinch and she's beating her inside. She's taking her down with ease, beat her up on top. I get it. Like there can be a little starstruck, and it's easy to say, "Oh, don't do that," but that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it did. A question that came up kind of while we were waiting for the show to start was this the most scared we've seen a title challenger look walking out and during fight week? And obviously, I think the gold standard for that is Megan Anderson against Amanda Nunes just a couple years ago, and then back a little further back, Chris Carriasso versus Demetrius Johnson. I would definitely place it behind those.
I'll
Like,
add one. I'll add one to that you wouldn't think would be scared based on his legendary career, but and you said challenger, so I guess this wouldn't fit. But Jose Aldo against Conor McGregor, he looks scared. I don't think he was scared of Conor. I think he was scared of the moment.
There was a whole bunch of things going on there. Like they'd been on the publicity tour with Conor, like snatching his belt from him on the podium and just being in his face. Like I think Conor played that masterfully in a sense of just sports psychology, but Aldo had more going on than just I'm scared of this moment. He was also like, I'm going to kill this guy. Like it wasn't just pure I don't belong here and I'm going to get my ass like knocked
No,
into the dirt. When I think of Carriasso walking out against Demetrius Johnson and what looks like a suit he borrowed from his dad, looking like a guy that it looked like some like dystopian sci-fi thing where he was on some game show like The Running Man where you get killed by superstars. And then Megan Anderson, look, for one thing, Megan Anderson is the palest person in Australia, but like just all the blood drained out of her, walking out, looking as though she's walking to her own execution, which,
yeah,
I mean, it was the next best thing that sport can provide to that. Those are the top two. I would say that Aldana did not look confident. I was hoping, because you mentioned the Grasso thing, I was hoping she'd take that, that Team Grasso
sure.
torch and run with it. Like, you're going to have to kill me to get me out of here. I'm going to be there the whole time and seize the moment the way Grasso did. But no, she was just another opponent. Whoever it was that commented in the chat that she looked like a sparring partner, that's almost generous.
Yeah,
Like, but here, I'll grant this. Like, obviously she was too passive, didn't throw enough volume, and it seemed to only get worse as the fight went along. But at the same time, Nunes played her masterfully for that. Like something that anyone in this chat on this recap that hears me on the previews has heard me harp on this. When a better complete fighter is fighting a dangerous striker, I will say, go for takedowns early and often, even if it's just to give him something to think about. And Nunes did exactly that in the first round and in the second round. She just tossed her to the ground, didn't even bother to follow her back down, but it just planted the seed that, okay, if I kick, if I overswing and get too far out over my feet, this chick is just going to pick me up and throw me down. And maybe this time she stays on top of me and chokes me out. I thought it was masterful. Like that and Nunes alternating kind of regular leg kicks where you kind of turn around, you turn your hip over and you're kicking them on the outside of the thigh or the outside of the calf, along with a push kick up the middle against the front of the knee, like almost John Jones style, except Jones will, throw it oblique. He'll throw it as a side kick. Whereas Nunes was throwing it almost like just a Muay Thai tip, only instead of at the gut, she was throwing it at the front of the knee. And it just stopped Aldana in her tracks every time. I'm sure it didn't feel great either, but both of those things, the threat of the takedown and alternating the speed and angle of her leg kicks, I think really just stopped Aldana in her tracks, and she never really got out of first gear.
yeah. No, you know what she looked like coming into the cage. Think about your old high school football days, like the practicing the varsity team, varsity offenses practicing against like everybody else who's on the team, and the offense is always beating up the defense because the defense is a bunch of bench players, and the running back, the 200-pound senior captain running back breaks one up the middle, and then you have the 110-pound freshman safety is the only person left. His eyes get all big as he's seeing this kid coming at him. That's what it does, As a freshman safety was a tall Mexican.
Okay, yeah.
The funny thing is, you have these moments, the talking points during the fight, the sound clips, the highlights, and they had that pre-presser, like not the one this week, but the one, I don't know what UFC pay-per-view was, when they first announced the fight that she was in for Juliana Pena. They said, what do you do that, that's gonna help you win? And she just said, I'm Mexican. And she fought the complete opposite of the stereotype of what a Mexican is. The Mexican fighter is willing to walk through one to land one, rather go out my shield than lose a decision. And that was not the case for her. Like, she just, and as the fight went on, it seemed like, she accepted defeat.
She completely did. And I love that you bring that up, because something that started to occur to me as the fight went along, and the UFC booth even picked up on it as well. Aldana took a number of flush shots from Nunes on the feet. And again, I'm sure they didn't feel great, but she wasn't like rocked like this fight is almost over rocked. And they pointed out that maybe she needed to weather one or two of those to get in her own offense, because when she landed cleanly on Nunes, Nunes felt it too. And Nunes, maybe this is the perfect time for her to step away, because she is hurtable in the last year or two in a way that she was not for a lot of her career. She has always been hittable on the feet. Like, she's deadly in the phone booth because she rolls with punches. She has good recoverability, and then she just comes back with overwhelming offense. But as recently as the Cyborg fight, she stood in the phone booth with the hardest female ever to compete in mixed martial arts. Like Chris Cyborg was the hardest hitter ever on the women's side, and took a couple flush shots from Cyborg, came back and lamped Cyborg. And you fast forward a couple years, she's getting hurt, or at least, stopped in her tracks by stuff she would have walked through before. I'm not saying she's end stage Chuck Liddell yet, but
Sure,
she was becoming middle stage Chuck Liddell, where women that wouldn't have had a thing for her before were kind of giving her something to think about. So
yeah. If you're referring to, like, they kept going back to the first round where she got hit and she kind of like fell away a little bit. I think it was a little overthrown, because she's going in for kill. She gets caught clean. I think she's more off balance than she was hurt. Because if you see, she didn't take a step back. She went right back into like throwing combinations at Aldana. I think they really blew that one up. But that's what happens when a fighter has like one punch chance. That they, every time they land, just thank God Joe Rogan wasn't there. Joe Rogan, there'd be people talking about, the first round should have scored for Aldana because she almost knocked her out.
Dan Hardy only has to touch George St. Pierre's chin once.
That's right. Some things that really still stood out to me: the kicking game. Kicking a boxer on the heavy foot. The obviously something we talked about. I don't know how many people talked about. We talked about it a lot. Like, I I didn't have a good night overall at my picks at all, but I felt like I broke down this fight saying that we could see a lot of wrestling for Nunes. So I liked all that. She picked up the timing too, because Aldana was throwing single strikes. She was not throwing combinations at her. About, I don't know, maybe the third round, she was having so much success just slipping and ripping.
Ironically, since Aldana on her way in, one of the things she did best in the bantamweight division was throw punches in combination.
Well, I'm sorry, say that again?
Ironically, since on her way to this title shot, Aldana was one of the best in the division at throwing punches in combination.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's her thing. Yeah, and she just gave herself pretty much no path victory, like none. Like, I'm gonna throw a punch once every one big punch at round and hopefully connect and win. Just really, really bad from Aldana. So the bigger news is, not that she defended her belt, but afterwards she cut off the gloves, hanged them up, laid both belts on the ground, and called it a career. I believe her. Like, I know that's, MMA retirements are so fickle. I think this is the second person to retire recently, memory, where I'm like, yeah, I really do think we're not gonna see that person again. The first one was Habib Nurmagomedov. Like, I actually believe that one, and I'm definitely believing even more now.
Yeah.
And the second person, I believe in Nunes. I just have a feeling that we really won't see her again.
I agree, and it's for the same three reasons. When Khabib walked away, I said there are three variables that determine whether an MMA retirement sticks. Do I have anything left to prove? do I need the money? Do I have something else to do with my time?
Yeah.
And in Khabib's case, he never needed the money. His family was okay. In terms of fighting as a lightweight, he didn't have a whole lot left to prove, and he had other things. He has a team, he has a family. With Nunes, all those things are even a step further. Nunes is well taken care of financially. She has a growing family. Like, her baby was in there in the page with her.
Having a second baby too.
Yeah, and I mean, if Khabib had little to prove, Nunes has nothing to prove.
Even less. That's right.
I mean, I stated on the preview, and you even corrected me and took it a step further where it belongs. I said Nunes has almost nothing to prove. Even if, she loses here, it doesn't really hurt her legacy. And you stated it even further. Like, nothing could have happened in this fight that would threaten her case as the greatest woman ever to do it. And depending on your criteria, the greatest fighter ever. Like, all you can do is beat the people in front of you, like the best in the world that you're allowed to fight. And she's as dominant as any fighter we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything you said, like, I can see her staying in the MMA community. She has a gym now. Maybe she'll start training. Maybe she'll become a coach. I don't know what she'll do. But I hope she's active in the community. She's so likable. Like, for someone who's a dominant champion, obviously she talks trash with Juliana Pena and Chris Cyborg and a couple of these, but generally speaking, she's so likable. Like, I don't know anybody who doesn't like Amanda Nunes.
I agree. She always seems really genuine, whether when she's being nice, it seems like she's genuinely being nice. When she's upset or she's got the little chip on her shoulder and she's like saying like real shit, that seems genuine as well. Like, it never seems forced. And for somebody that one of the hallmarks of her career, unfortunately, is her lack of marketability. I mean, she's headlined 2 of the worst selling pay-per-views in UFC history. It doesn't line up with how every fan I talk to thinks of her. Like, I'll never forget watching whichever was the John Jones versus Thiago Santos, like UFC 228 or something.
Sure.
I went to a bar and watched it in the bar. First time I'd seen a UFC event in the bar in at least 5 years. And that one was co-headlined by Nunes versus Holm. That was the one that had.
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah, of course.
If for anybody who's never done that and never gone to a Buffalo Wild Wings, something, just do it at least once.
Do it at least once.
If you're obviously the people watching this are hardcores. Like, you're not standing up at 1:30 a.m. in Eastern or wherever you are. Some guys in Europe, it's even worse. Yeah, I mean, you're not standing up watching a post-fight show with two guys.
Yeah,
I think that. But finish your point.
And that was the one that had, of course, the Masvidal versus Askren like
KO
on it, like starting Masvidal's rise to like one of the biggest stars in the sport.
Yeah.
And I'm in this bar, and I live in a part of Texas where unironic cowboy hats are definitely a thing.
That's
like
fantastic.
It was a pretty like redneck. It wasn't a chain place like a Buffalo Wild Wings. I went to the local like Molly's Irish pub, like full of like redneck ass drunk dudes.
Even better.
That place went bananas for Amanda Nunes, the supposedly unmarketable Brazilian lesbian champion that doesn't speak super great English. They fucking loved her.
It's because we love dominance. It's just how it is. Dominant people, get the biggest shares. Even if you're boring, you get huge shares.
Yeah, and of course,
just like when you fail,
the home fight was exciting for about 90 seconds.
Yeah. And even when you fail, and then it goes the other way. They love to hate you, and people make up things about you being, boring or cocky or whatever reasons when your fall comes. And if Nunes had a fall, there'd be a lot of people who would have really enjoyed it. Yeah. Even though I was watching an interview with her this week, and it was during the media day, and I think it was a local Vancouver media. I'm not really sure, but the guy talked about his wife, and he said that his wife was interested in Amanda Nunes. And
she might be interested too.
Yeah. No, but as in like, she's a casual fan. She didn't care, but she was excited. Like, oh man, Nunes on this card, and she was saying how you got a woman like that excited. And what was cool at the very end, Amanda Nunes, he answered the guy's question as nice as Amanda Nunes always is. And at the very end, she goes, "Hey, make sure you said hi to your wife for me." Like, that was cool. Like, this just Amanda Nunes is just cool. Like I
Yeah.
just I don't know. I'm gonna miss Amanda Nunes because yeah, I'm like everybody else. I like dominance, but a good thing about Amanda Nunes leaving is in this happens way too soon. We always get the legend who holds on too long, and we're seeing Frankie Edgar get knocked out easily, and BJ Penn, and you mentioned Chuck Liddell, and I mean, just insert pretty much every fighter in history, other than, I mean, who has retired on top? Habib,
Khabib.
George St. Pierre.
Yeah, Khabib, GSP twice. Both times off of like incredible, like wins.
Yeah. Cejudo tried, but then he came back. And we're not talking about going into Bellator. I'm talking about the top people, of the sport. That number one guys in their weight class. There ain't many. So, I mean, and I guess that's like with every sport. I mean, how many guys actually retire on top? John Elway, Ray Lewis, a couple other people. I mean, I know he technically didn't win a championship his last year, but I mean, Tom Brady was still as good as he gets. Even though, I mean, obviously he held on extremely late, so that's probably not. He held on very late in age, so that's probably not the perfect example. You mentioned it. There's absolutely no debate. Like the debate is who's the second greatest female fighter. Like the gap between Amanda Nunes and the number two person is there's no debate because Amanda Nunes beat whatever person you got to argue. Amanda Nunes beat that person.
Yeah.
If you want to argue for Valentina Shevchenko, she beat her twice. If you want to argue for Chris Cyborg, she's beat her. I mean, fill in whoever else. She's chances are Amanda Nunes beat her. And I never do this. I don't do it. I don't like comparing men versus women because in pound for pound and all that, because it's like pound for pound is silly already. Then you got to add in women. But we are a recap show, so we'll have to be entertaining. So I don't think Amanda Nunes is the greatest fighter of all time. Okay. But I'm going to say this. Like, I ain't mad at you if you think so. Because there's definitely an argument for it.
I agree. And if you were to make a Mount Rushmore where you're just ranking the most skilled, most dominant fighters of all time, regardless of weight, regardless of gender, I think she's the only woman that really threatens to get on the Mount Rushmore. Yeah. Like even I think that.
Yeah. So if I'm ranking, who's the greatest, who am I ranking above her? I'm going John Jones, and I'm going probably George St. Pierre. And the only reason I'm putting those two over them is John Jones doesn't have a bad loss. He doesn't have a loss, really.
Right.
And George St. Pierre avenged all his losses.
Avenged all his losses in brutal fashion. Yeah.
In brutal fashion. Like, it wasn't like, that wasn't, Amanda Nunes has some early career losses. Now, should they matter that much? No, they shouldn't. But, like, when you have those guys, you kind of have to nitpick. So that's what I'm doing. I'm nitpicking.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you really look at what she's done, this is why I'm saying, all right, so Dev throws up his Mount Rushmore and he puts Habib over Amanda Nunes. He goes John Jones. I'll put it up on there so we can see John Jones, GSP, Habib, and DJ. I think that's a really good Mount Rushmore. Except I take Habib out. Yes, I know Habib was undefeated. He doesn't have the title defenses. He doesn't have the names. He doesn't have the names on the list.
He wasn't even fighting top 10 fighters until the last 7 or 8 fights of his career.
Yeah. Amanda Nunes has the names. Like that's her.
All of them. All the names.
You talk about all the people. Nobody's beaten better competition in their weight classes than Amanda Nunes has.
She destroyed.
And that's including John Jones.
She's the greatest women's featherweight of all time, and she destroyed the second greatest in under a minute. She's the greatest women's bantamweight of all time. She destroyed the second greatest in under a minute.
Yeah.
This is my stat that I always throw out. She has a decision over Pena. Until she did that, she had finished every woman that had ever held a title in UFC or Bellator in either of the divisions in which she competes, 135 or 145. Oh, and by the way, she also has 2 wins over the greatest flyweight of all time. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. We debate other sports. Who's better, Michael Jordan, LeBron, and Larry Bird, and Kareem, and like imagine if one of those players beat those top 10 people that you argue who's a top 10, Shaq and Kobe and all these people. Imagine if one player, his team always beat and he beat all the other 9 players, like or you debating tennis or something, and they're like, oh yeah, but this guy has beaten all those other people you say, but they haven't beaten them, or they try using it again. I think the only argument for her not to be on the Mount Rushmore, and I shouldn't say argument, but the only reason she doesn't get in, and I want to make this clear, I'm not calling people sexist, but there is a sexist like attitude to it, because it's why when you see the list of top 10 pound for pound, we don't do that, we separate them, but other websites who do it, like you'll see her like 7th. It's like, Leon Edwards is not like Leon is obviously going to go, but he's not better than Amanda Nunes, or stuff like that. But you'll see that. So, I got no issue. I mean, she's got the names, she's got the title defense. I think she's got 8 title defenses. She's got the 2-weight champions, defended both weights. She has as strong an argument as anybody.
Yeah,
that's also. I know we don't want to get into that because we can go down. But I mean, so I said my name. I said the 2 people I'd rank again. Who would you rank above her? And you don't have to, I'm not going to stick you to this, but.
Well, I mean, Jones and GSP for sure. And then I'd kind of have to really think out like Aldo, DJ, and Nunes.
Okay. So Joe Black makes this argument. I've heard a lot of people say if you test positive. There's another argument for Nunes. Like, I know it was just this week or something, like she got her 75th badge for testing clean and all that stuff. Okay. There's another argument. And people say, oh, hey, test.
I'll ask Joe Black this, and keep in mind that I'm on the side that thinks that I don't really care about steroids much, but
I don't either.
Virtually all of Fedor's biggest accomplishments came in a place where he was not tested, period.
Yeah, and come on, if you don't think a Russian heavyweight who fought in Pride took steroids, like, come on, dude. And George St. Pierre, let's be honest, really, what he fought, I think 2 fights during the USADA era, right? Yep. I think Hendricks was I mean, I know the Bisping one was, but
and Hendricks was his perfect like cautionary tale to get out before USADA got in, because
I'm not
melted like a fucking candle.
I'm not saying we're not accusing anybody of doing steroids. I mean, like, well, all right.
I mean, I'm kind of accusing Johnny of doing steroids.
Well, I'm not going to accuse GSP though. It wouldn't shock me, but I'll accuse Fedor. Like, come on. So the divisions, we all in agreement. Get rid of 145. Just get rid of the whole division. Like,
are we jumping to the cut list already? Because every 145 pounder in the UFC is on my cut list.
Okay, there you go. Like, I think if you can make 135, cool. But I mean, we'll throw this out to the chat. Does anybody want to keep 145? Because I mean, one, she hasn't defended the title in God knows when.
I was hoping going into this fight that she would, well, I wasn't hoping she'd beat Aldana, but assuming she beat Aldana, I was hoping she'd defend the 145-pound belt once more and then retire. I'm fine with this because the 145-pound division in the UFC has never truly existed. Is it a stretch to say that every single 145-pound women's fight the UFC has ever held was either a title fight, a title eliminator, or at worst, the winner was 2 fights from a title shot? That's not a division. That's a tournament. That's not even a full Grand Prix. That's like an 8-woman tournament. Yeah, like
while also you said, it was a title eliminator or a title or 2 fights out, but that fight was also the first fight on the prelims.
Yeah,
somehow too. It was top 5 matchup, but 30 West throws out the Fedor never had a steroid body. Yeah, go look at Josh Barnett at the end of his career, and he was as flabby.
Yeah, I mean,
he got flabby as he got, and he kept.
Josh Barnett looked flabbier than Fedor, and he is the gold standard for failing PED tests.
Now I know what people would say. Oh, they're gonna post a picture of Josh Barnett when he was in the UFC when he was like
21, 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, look at Tim Sylvia. Like
Oh, Tim Sylvia. There you go.
steroids have, and I said this on the preview, I'll throw it out really quick here. Steroids have a function other than just making you look like a vascular monster. The main thing that happened when USADA kind of weeded out a lot of the steroid noobs is we got a lot more injury withdrawals and a lot more weight misses, because the primary function of steroids for most fighters is helping them recover from in-training injuries more quickly. That's like,
Yeah.
if you as a non-fighter ever get prescribed a steroid, it's probably for that, something like that, reducing inflammation, speeding healing. That's what it is for most fighters, and those things are banned now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the chat. I have not seen a single person yet say, save 145 like we did when flyweight was getting cut.
There are a few people from our notoriously vocal Norma Dumont fan club that are saying keep 145 if it means we keep Norma Dumont. I understand that. There is a certain appeal to having a woman in the UFC that is like thicker than Don Fry's mustache, but we can't build a division around that woman. She needs to just find a way to make 135.
Yeah. You know what? Why don't we just scrap both 135 and 145 and just make a 140-pound division? There you go.
Okay, so you're asking for Gina Carano to come back since she fought in the 140-pound division for like.
Hey, listen, I'm always ready for Gina Carano to come back. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because there is good news about Amanda Nunes retiring. That means Ronda Rousey comes back now.
She's like, is it safe to come back yet?
Like,
she's wearing the Roddy Piper skirt and the leather jacket.
Yeah. Kind of like how John Jones suddenly wants to fight at heavyweight when Francis Scano's contract is no longer with the UFC.
Yep.
Oh, stop it, Juicex. Stop it. ain't no one. Paul Dixon. Ain't nobody saying no to Gina Carano. I don't care how much weight she put on.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously we're scrapping 145, keeping 135. You talked about.
Okay. Hey, who's happiest right now? Like don't say Dana White or Sean Shelby.
Everybody in the division.
But who specifically right now? Like, who are you matching for that vacant title?
Okay, well, we'll say this first, and we'll get into who we're matching for the 135-pound title. We talk about Amanda Nunes not selling pay-per-views. Wait till we see these title matchups. Like, you think the Amanda Nunes title matchup doesn't get excitement? Wait till you see
Holm versus Pennington 2 for the
Pennington 3. That'd be the third time.
Oh, you're right.
The top two, I think, most deserving. I mean, Juliana Pena. I mean, she did just have the title.
Yeah.
She can just. I don't want to say she sell a fight, but she'll talk up a fight.
Yeah.
Holly Holm would probably be the most marketable. She still has buzz. But if you're going on merit, it should be Raquel Pennington.
Yeah, so Pennington Pena.
Could you imagine Pena versus Pennington for the UFC title?
I'm picturing something that sells negative pay-per-views. Like, people are sending their money to Disney to not have to watch this fight.
Yeah.
And I'm picturing a pay-per-view where Daniel Cormier repeatedly gets the women's names confused, in spite of calling them by their first names the whole time, just because their last names are similar.
Yeah, too close.
I'm already circling that for a vacation week from Sherdog. Whew.
All right, so let's do this. We'll throw in the chat. So we all agree Pena should be in it. So who's the other side? Is it Pennington? Is it Holm? Is it somebody else? Let's be serious for a second. Don't throw out Ronda Rousey coming back or whatever. Throw out there throw one word who you would insert, Pena versus whoever, and so what would you have done? You're the matchmaker. Who are you putting against Pena?
Whew. Okay, this is a bit of a left field thought, but right now, if I am Valentina Shevchenko, I don't have my 125-pound belt, but my boogie woman is gone. Shevchenko beats all of those top 135-pounders. Every single damn one of them. I think Shevchenko destroys all the women we're talking about right now. I mean, she would win a boring 5-round decision over Holm, because that's Holm.
Yeah.
But she beats Pena. She beats
Yeah.
Pennington. She
Should have
beats
beat Pennington.
Aldana.
Should have beat.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a while ago, but I think she still
Sure.
does.
Yeah, I
She
agree.
beats Aldana.
Yeah.
Like
I
if
I
Valentina Shevchenko ever wanted to kind of say, okay, I'm tired of making 125 because hey, as someone who's been in an elevator with this woman a few times, she's big. Uh, hey, have a third act to your career. Like move up to 135.
I would agree with that if she didn't lose her last fight. If she was still the 125-pound champion, yeah, okay, like expanding your legacy. But to me, like she needs that Amanda Nunes versus Julian Pena 2 moment. Like she needs to go back and beat Alexa Grasso.
Beat Grasso.
And her loss against Grasso to me is almost worse. And not in the worst in the sense like how it happened, but worse in like she was winning that fight.
She didn't lose to Grasso. Grasso beat her. Whereas in the Nunes versus Pena first fight, I thought Nunes lost to Pena. Like she was winning the fight, she got tired.
Yeah.
Pena was in the perfect position to take advantage, and she won the fight. I'm not saying she didn't win, but you know what I mean. Like Pena won the first fight against Nunes because Nunes had a bad night, came up short. That was kind of proven in the rematch. Whereas, no, dude, I'm with you. Like Grasso beat Shevchenko. She came in with a game plan. Clearly, she followed that game plan, and she beat Shevchenko when Shevchenko, she wasn't tired, she wasn't hurt. She made a mistake that Grasso was prepared to take full advantage of.
Yeah. I think I'm just gonna do Pennington. I know it sounds terrible, but I put it like third from the top of like a loaded pay-per-view, and I just do, Pena versus Pennington.
Okay.
I just for once I'm not doing the marketing one. For once I'm doing the merit.
Jace X like makes the case for Jessica Andrade to make one last trip up to 135. As somebody who I do my best not to play favorites, or at least to make my biases known, anything that gets me fewer post-fight interviews with Juliana Pena is probably a win. So I'm there. I'm on board for that.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the co-main event. A lot of people are calling this the people's main event. Charles Oliveira taking on Beneil Dariush. Charles Oliveira winning by first round TKO.
Do you want to know how petty I am? On the preview, I called for Oliveira by second round TKO, and some guy in the comments said it was insane to pick that. So I went back about an hour and a half ago and was like, you were right, it was insane. I should have had Oliveira by first round TKO.
Well, maybe that's what he was trying to say. Maybe he was trying to say, like, how bad you're discounting him. He's going to win by first round.
That's exactly what he meant. I'm so petty. It's terrible.
Yeah, I can't be petty at all on this card if someone bashed my picks, because my picks were freaking terrible. I've been I'm not gonna lie, two weeks in a row my picks have been really bad. You do as many shows as we do, it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
we're not those people who like say, oh, guaranteeing picks. We're not like that. Yeah. So Beneil Dariush was doing very well. Where we thought he might do well in the grappling, which is it's weird to look and say, Charles Oliveira losing grappling matches. It's extremely weird. But one thing we don't talk about enough is probably something, we talk about how good Charles Oliveira's striking has become, but we don't talk about how hard this dude hits for a skinny Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner who's known, it's because it's overshadowed because he has the, most submission wins and all this. He also has obviously the most stoppages, but he can crack. And we saw that tonight.
And it is the kind of power that stems from good technique and just good solid core strength, because he doesn't overswing on things. He hits people and you can tell it hurts him. It's brutal. And I put up a comment from Skynet here. Like, Oliver had a huge advantage on the feet. Not sure how people don't see that. I kind of agree. I mean, my whole problem with the guy laughing at the Oliveira by TKO pick is that, yeah, Oliveira has been hurt on the feet before, but of the two, of Oliveira and Dariush is the only guy that had multiple losses specifically because his chin got detonated.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about Charles Oliveira, like him winning by any method. It's funny because I remember when Volkanovski took on Makhachev and the amount of people that was like scoffing at Volkanovski fighting Makhachev and how he could beat him, and obviously it didn't happen, but he was so close, and a lot of people thought he did win. But the people that was counting him out, and I picked Makhachev,
Yeah,
but like, wait a minute, like we're gonna pretend that Alex Volkanovski's can't win a fight, and then like this, like we're gonna pretend that Charles Oliveira, like if I mean, obviously I would take Makhachev based on the outcome of their first matchup, and I picked Makhachev when they fought.
Mm-hmm.
But if Charles Oliveira starches Makhachev, like I'm not shocked by it.
No.
It's Charles Oliveira. Look at the stat that we have up there by G6.
It's Charles Oliveira. Okay. I have a couple of superlative historical questions for you, and because of the two of us, you're the guy who's more in the moment. I expect you'll swing on these. Is Charles Oliveira the most improved striker in the history of high-level MMA?
Mind you, I am going on like 2 hours sleep.
Yeah.
He's in the club.
He's definitely in the club.
Like he wasn't a striker. I mean, there's times he used to pull guard and this, I mean, he still pulls guard, but you know what I mean? Like he wanted to get it down. He was a Brian Hall type.
All phases of MMA considered, is he the most potent offensive fighter in MMA history?
Most opportunistic, I'll say. I don't know what potent.
But like, okay.
Opportunistic. You make a mistake against Charles. He's the person, I mean, obviously he has the most finishes. He's the person that is most likely to make you pay for a mistake. Does that make sense? Am I saying like, you get what I'm saying?
I completely do. And you're already kind of getting to the next thing I would have said if you just answered with a flat yes or no, because it depends on.
Sorry, guys.
It depends on what you value. He is the most opportunistic. Obviously he's already the greatest finisher in one phase of MMA, and he's probably going to end up with the most like wins by finish in MMA history, or in UFC history by the time.
Doesn't he have that?
But he's already the submission leader.
I think he has the most finishes. Am I wrong?
If he isn't there, he's close. Like, so if you're talking about in terms of finishes of high level fighters, yeah. And
I could be wrong. It could be like Cerrone or Miller or something like that. But
and that's that's opportunism, and it's a function of how he fights, because a lot of those finishes were not in fights that he was dominating the whole way. I mean, look at the Poirier and Gaethje fights where both those guys had him on the ropes, and he came back for a win. So he's unbelievable. Having said that, at age 33, as a lightweight now, he should theoretically be in the prime of his career, or at least on the tail end of it for another year or so. But I think he's an old 33. Like, I think,
he's.
I mean, like, this guy debuted in the UFC at age 20, barely 20.
Fought everybody.
Fought everybody. Dude, Jim Miller knee-barred this man when he was still 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember in the moment thinking, oh, this hype train is done. This undefeated, like, skinny Brazilian guy who trains in his garage in some favela, like, he's not going to amount to anything. And I was right for about 10 years. But, he's
third all time in UFC wins.
Which is wild, because he has like 10 fewer fights than some of the other guys that are in that conversation.
Yeah, and it should almost be in a point system. Like, you get like 3 points if it's a top 10 guy. You get, you get a bonus point if it's because it's not all like, listen, you know how I feel. We've talked about the UFC Hall of Fame. I don't care about the UFC Hall of Fame. I'll tell you why. Everybody gets in. Like, what? It's not
except Tito Ortiz.
Yeah, no, he's in.
Except Frank Shamrock.
Frank Shamrock, yeah.
Sorry, Frank Shamrock is my new guy.
You get my point. Like, it's not like your stick and ball sports where there's like people vote, there's a system, there's like only so many, 5 years after can you do it, and there's classes, and that is much more prestigious getting in. This, if you're friendly with a boss, you get in. I mean, Matt Serra's in the UFC Hall of Fame, Kevin Randleman, Mo Smith, like. And I understand it's different times, and it's hard to compare a guy like Mo Smith but say what you want about DC and the Jim Miller comments, and I'm on the Jim Miller's a Hall of Famer simply because everybody gets in. So why are we arguing this? But what DC was saying was 100% true.
Yep.
Jim Miller was never a great fighter.
No. Well, hey,
I said it's great. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a great fighter, but I mean,
he's a great fighter.
He was never considered the best in the world, or even close to the best
No.
in the world.
Well, here's my comparison, and I'm a guy whose age starts with the number 4, who grew up in the Washington D.C. area. So growing up, one of my heroes was Art Monk, receiver for the Washington Redskins, now the Washington Commanders. He's in the NFL Hall of Fame. He was never the best receiver in the league.
No.
For a few years, he was one of the 4 or 5 best, and he ended up with a ton of statistical fireworks just because he stuck around so long because he had incredible longevity. That's Jim Miller. Jim Miller was never the best lightweight in the world. He was a top 10, if not top 5 guy for a couple of years. I mean, there were a couple of years where he only lost to Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard, and Edgar was great and Maynard was almost great and very unlucky. And now he has a lock on the UFC record book because of his longevity. So he's like the Art Monk of MMA. Put him in there. And now that Tito Ortiz and Jens Pulver are in there, bring Frank Shamrock too. Like, bury the hatchet.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, Matt Serra's in the UFC Hall of Fame, and the only thing he's an all-time leader in is amount of time riding around in the car with Dana.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's been on looking for a fight.
Yeah, the biggest upset in UFC history.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Beneil Dariush said something interesting during the media day. He said that Charles Oliveira is the second greatest lightweight of all time. Do you agree with that? See, he said it, behind Khabib.
You can make a case for it depending on what you value, and that sounds like a cop out, but it depends. Like, do you value what BJ Penn did in flashes of brilliance for 2 years in 2009?
Yeah, that's tough.
Oliveira, his last 5 fights alone are better than everything BJ Penn did, on an absolute scale. BJ Penn gets a ton of credit for losing in noble warrior fashion against 200-pound Lyoto Machida. I mean, I think he's the second best lightweight of all time. I think the Charles Oliveira that stepped out into the cage tonight beats any lightweight that ever set foot in a cage anywhere, anytime, except for Islam Makhachev and Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, but that also has to do with guys are better now than they were 10 years ago.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
Because he's in the top 2 or 3 of the best of all time.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to, even though I keep bringing up all the sports, it's like the people say stupid, LeBron James couldn't play in the 80s. Yeah, LeBron James couldn't play in the 80s. Just sure. The guy can shoot 3-pointers from friggin' half court, and he's built bigger than Scottie Pippen was, and he can run faster and jump higher. Yeah, that guy couldn't play in the 80s because they fouled. Okay, yeah, sure.
I was there in the 80s. He could play any position for any team except maybe center.
No, I think he probably could have played center too. Just stupid. Yes.
Yeah.
Not this, I'm sure we'll get comments on that. I don't care. If you think LeBron James isn't good. I don't care.
If you care enough to add us about that, you're on the wrong podcast.
Yeah. Beneil Dariush is in this is really bad for him, because this is not just you lost to possibly, right now probably the second best guy in the division.
He lost to the guy he had the best chance of beating.
Yeah, not counting Alex Volkanovski, obviously, but the guys who are actually lightweights. But one, it's a deep division. It's hard to get a title. I mean, he had to go on an 8-fight win to even get into consideration. But also, it's him, because he's not a marketable guy, that he doesn't have he doesn't get to use the express lane, the carpool lane. He's in that bumper to bumper traffic. It sucks. And I mean, it is what it is. He's not a boring fighter, but he's not the most exciting fighter. He definitely doesn't have an exciting personality. I mean, he's like a, what is he, Iranian, right?
Iranian American, yep.
Yeah, he's like a Iranian Billy Graham over here. Just talks about Jesus, and the embedded was like, hey, I have a wife and kid. Okay. There's nothing excited about him. Because of that, this is a terrible loss for him.
I agree. The UFC lightweight top 5, top 6 is full of incredible fighters, and none of them are as offensively potent as Oliveira, but all of them are more defensively sound. This was the guy of all of them that Dariush had the best chance of winning
Yeah.
against. Like I thought Dariush had a better chance of winning tonight against Oliveira than he would have against Gaethje, Chandler,
Yeah.
Poirier, and we're probably going to talk about what's next for him, and those are the names that are kind of in the hat. And for that reason, I do feel bad because Dariush, yeah, he's not the most sensational, appealing personality. Okay, yeah, technical wealth. There is another thing about him. He is super devoutly Christian because,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a member of the Assyrian diaspora, and a lot of those people are, they've been Christian since like the Crusader days, while living in an unfriendly part of the world or unfriendly parts of the world. Like, it is wild, and he is, he said some pretty sensational things on the mic, including in like Abu Dhabi, but his moments on the mic might be limited at this point because
Yeah.
he fights 2 years older and looks 10 years older
Yeah.
than
Oh,
he did.
yeah. So first of all, shout out to all the heathens in our chat. So when I said Iranian Billy Graham, they thought I was talking about the wrestler. No, I'm talking about the
The
televangelist.
televangelist, the original superstar televangelist, not superstar Billy
Come on,
Graham,
guys.
but yeah, come on.
It's
Other
Sunday
Billy Graham.
morning. It's Sunday morning, guys. Come on.
No. If you want the other Billy Graham, you got to look to Chael Sonnen for some of his quotes. Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot what my second point was. What were we talking about?
Talking about
Yeah, my daughter. I'm watching Beneil Dariush Media Day. Yeah, I already said this to you, but it goes back to our previous show. And my 12-year-old daughter seen it talking, and he goes, "He's a fighter." I'm like, yeah, and he's like, "He's really old." I'm like, he's actually not old at all.
he's not that old, but like he because the UFC is so hard on these things, he apparently lost his Just for Men sponsorship and like instantly aged like 10 years. Yeah, like
We did talk about marketability. Charles Oliveira, like learning English and speaking it, that'll go a huge way for a guy who got a huge pop. He's a Brazilian fighting in Canada, and he got a huge. I mean, he got, other than the Canadians on the card, he got a bigger pop than even Nunes did.
I think he got a huger pop than like the Canadians on the card, except for maybe Malott, just because it was a fuller arena at the time. But no, it's a good thing. And considering that he has been working for an American company, mostly in the United States, for almost half his life, it's about damn time. But here's the thing. He has a little of that Anderson Silva thing where his English has always been a little better than he lets on. But he preferred to be kind of regal and detached and enigmatic. And that's fine. I can support that choice. I mean, obviously, Chael called out Anderson Silva on that, where he's like, Anderson Silva speaks English just fine. He just doesn't want to go back and forth with me. Oliveira's a little of that too, because if you've covered an event live and you've been around during fight week at the hotel and in the convention centers backstage, you hear him talking with his people, you hear him talking with other fighters, you hear him talking with the UFC staff, who overwhelmingly are American or Australian.
Sure.
His English is fine. But if he wants now to unveil it, good timing.
Yeah, that's like they say, like Fedor was the same way. Like he spoke way more English than he pretended to. Yeah. He's also he's that Brazilian who, I mean, we get this in all cultures, but you have the immigrants who come over to America. I mean, you have it in Houston, we have it here. You have the ones who really grasp the American culture and speak in English, and the other ones who stays in their community. He's that. I'm Brazilian. I train in Brazil. This is my guys. We all dye our hair blonde, whatever. So he's not good with burns. That's my point. Which is fine either way. We're in a bind though, because I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's obviously he gets the rematch against Islam Makhachev." Do you think he should already?
I kind of do, and it's not because of I think he's going to have a better chance against Makhachev, although I don't think he could do any worse. Like, I think all the onus in a rematch would be on Makhachev to hold serve, while Oliveira at least had things to take back to the drawing board. But there's kind of an absence of anyone else that's like screamingly obviously deserving. I mean, you can make a
Yeah.
case for well, okay, all this goes out the window if Connor beats Chandler at lightweight.
The problem is, who knows when that's going to happen?
Exactly. So you could take the winner of Poirier versus Gaethje. I mean, that person is fairly deserving, but those are both people that lost badly to Oliveira. You know, first or second round stoppage losses.
Yeah, absolutely. Oliveira. I mean, he's. There's no doubt he's the second best guy in the division. That's not enough debate. Yeah, as of right now. Now, could he lose to one of those guys? Absolutely. Man, we're talking about Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, like incredible fighters. What else is the second best guy doesn't always get the title shot.
No,
you know.
Agreed.
And, I mean, if that was the case, Joseph Benavidez would have fought Demetrius Johnson 10 times. You know, which is why you said, "Hey, he's already beaten these guys; they don't deserve a title shot." And my argument is, yeah, well, Makhachev already beat him.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going. I'm going the title shot. I want somebody else facing Makhachev. I want to fight. I haven't seen. Obviously, I would favor Makhachev over the winner of Poirier versus Gaethje, but I'm going with the winner of Poirier versus Gaethje. They'll have the BMF thing going on for the people who likes that. They can bring their BMF belt in. So that's what I would do. So it kind of leaves Charles Oliveira out, but then like, well, who does he fight in the meantime? It really, there's nobody deserves him.
Well,
so I'm thinking outside the box. I'm gonna give you an outside the box answer.
All right.
Assuming Alex Volkanovski wins at featherweight, like how long does he really want to fight at featherweight? How about Alex Volkanovski versus Charles Oliveira pay-per-view, like main event? Like we don't even need a title fight, just Charles Oliveira, Alex Volkanovski main event of pay-per-view. I'm game.
The fight makes almost no sense competitively speaking. Depending on what both guys did after the fight, it could throw the title pictures of two divisions into complete disorder. Under any other circumstances, I would hate it with every fiber of my being, but I have to support it because the fight itself sounds incredibly fucking dope, and I didn't think of it until about 2 minutes ago. And otherwise, you're running out of moving pieces to fit together, because I came into this ready to say, okay, Oliveira gets one more chance at Makhachev, which means Dariush can take the loser of Poirier versus Gaethje, so he kind of stays in that top 7 or 8, which I think he's earned. And that means you have something for the winner of Connor versus Chandler. But if you want to bring a whole other piece into the equation there, I don't hate that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate what Juice X offers up too. I mean, Holloway's kind of stuck at featherweight. Instead of him keep beating top contenders, which maybe force him up to face Oliveira, guy he's already got one over. I mean, there's some history there. Like, I don't hate that either.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. To me, Dariush is like screwed. Like this, I don't want Dariush facing top guys, taking them out. But what would you do with Dariush?
I feel bad busting him all the way down to fighting up and coming prospects. He is at the best, he's on the tail end of his prime. And so I feel bad busting him all the way down, because like the UFC slow rolled him so hard to get here. So match him with a losing fighter out of some of these matchups coming up. Okay. You know, the loser of like if Chandler loses to Connor, that's an obvious one. I mean, because if Connor loses, then all of a sudden Connor is like a prize again. The loser of Poirier Gaethje, something like that.
You mean if Connor wins, he's a prize again?
No, even if Connor loses. If Connor loses but says, I want to fight once more, everyone between 145 and 185 pounds is calling him out after their fight again, like he's a trip to Disneyland.
Yeah, and if he wins, he's on a 2-fight winning streak.
Yeah.
Because he would have a win over Michael Chandler, and then he had that win over the Miami Heat mascot.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
That needs to stop. The people inside those costumes are you or me.
Did you
They
see the
are.
video?
I saw the video.
It's like, what the fuck, Connor?
Like it might be worse than the Deontay Wilder one.
Yeah, I never saw that. When he
Like
punched.
3 or 4 years ago, Deontay Wilder like knocked out a mascot in the padded suit and like
Oh,
broke his jaw.
like, what are you doing? What are these
Yeah.
guys doing? Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, then he drops him and then he runs over and gives him one more punch. I'm like, oh my gosh. So the matchup I came up with, Hinata Moicano. Dariush versus Moicano.
That sounds like a Fight Night main event, and I
Yep.
love it.
There you go. All right, let's get through these other fights. We've already been over an hour. We'll get through these other fights a lot quicker. Obviously, not as much to talk about. Mike Malott took on Adam Fugit. I will say this: I didn't expect. Like, obviously, I know the Canadian crowd's going to cheer for the Canadians, and I did a little like complaining about like, hey, why is Mike Malott versus Adam Fugit, on the main card and over Imavov and Curtis and Jazavicius and Maverick and stuff. I had no idea. Like, whoever's in the UFC PR department did extremely good with Mike Malott. He's like a freaking new superstar. He has that like um Molly McCann thing in England going on where he needs to fight in Canada all the time.
Well, either that, he needs to fight in Canada all the time, like we said Molly McCann should have, or if the next time he fights in the United States, he needs to do full like Bret Hart heel turns and be like, America sucks. Like
Yeah.
if I wanted to give the United States an enema, I'd stick the hose right here in Columbus or right here in Miami or wherever he's fighting that night and just go to town. Maybe grow out some like long greasy hair,
What?
put on some Oakleys. Yeah.
Hey, they should do it all the way now. Like, take all the winners today from Canada and just put them in like their own Heart Foundation. They travel together. Mike Malott's the leader talking shit. They have Mark Andre Barrio, he's like the Jim Neidhart, and
Jim the Anvil Neidhart, just make him like work out his traps until he has like no neck at all and grow like a little goatee.
Yeah. We'll find some random British guy to like be the British Bulldog. That like, why is he with the? Like, I mean, I know he married him, but yeah. No, but Mike Malott was so. He's like freaking Elvis or the Beatles or who's the girl here? She just came in town.
Justin Bieber.
No, there's a girl. I can't think of her name.
Avril Lavigne.
No, she's not Canadian.
Oh,
the girl. She's on tour, and the people are going crazy that she's on tour. They not Miley Cyrus, the other famous blonde girl. She's like a hot blonde girl. I'm sure someone knows. Someone in the chat will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
she's on tour right now, and the tickets were like $1,000 a seat or some. Taylor Swift. Thank you, Ninja Kitty. Did you see what happened to Mike Malott? The people were trying to touch him as he walked out, and the railing broke. Did you see it?
I saw it. Like, people reaching out to touch this guy like he is like Canadian Jesus, and if they can just touch the hem of his robe, they'll be healed. Okay, this is horrible, and I'm probably going to get like some flack for this, but if that is the fighter that draws that reaction, Canadian MMA has gone downhill, because I still see his top side is probably outside the top 10.
I mean, he beat Mickey Gall. Like, he's got this exciting because he beat Mickey Gall. I mean, listen, I think he looked great tonight. He looked fast. He looked powerful. Obviously, he's exciting. 100% finish rate. The way he jumped on that guillotine was nasty. Like, it was fast. It was nasty. Slams, takedowns, speed, dropped him. Fantastic. He beat Adam Fugit. Well, he's not even close to a top 50 guy.
He's now 3-0 in the UFC, and he still hasn't beaten anybody that I'm sure is going to be in the UFC a year from now.
And yeah, I agree. And that division is so loaded that a step up in competition for him is still not even nowhere near like a ranked opponent.
Oh, maybe I'm going to match him harder than you going forward.
Oh, okay, so let's hear it.
Well, I figured, given like the incipient star power there, they can't just throw him in like general population again. So I'm thinking give him a former top 15-ish guy that's been alternating wins and losses. Nicholas Dalby and Muslim Salikov are fighting next week. Give him
Oh,
either the winner of that or the loser if like the winner has like a bad cut or something. Give him
those are tough matchups.
They are tough matchups, but aside from that, what are you going to do? Like Brian Barberena?
Yeah, that works. That works perfect for me.
Okay. There we go. Like, I mean,
Brian Barberena
know,
in Canada, like I don't know. Next time they come back to Canada, say they went to like Toronto, in the fall time, September or something like that, October.
I mean, me, like our kind of humorous default answer, and of course he's my homie, would be like Alex Morono, but I think Alex Morono might.
That'd be a
huge step up. I think Alex gets slammed a few times and then choke his ass. Like,
I think Brian Barberena is probably a bigger name than Alex Moreno.
Yeah,
half the threat. Half the threat.
Yeah.
Matt Brown is a way bigger name and a quarter of the threat. The guy I wrote down, I didn't go like name. I just went with I want to step on competition.
Yeah.
I went with Chaos Williams. I think Malott wins that fight. But.
I do too, but Chaos Williams presents a clear danger.
Oh, absolutely.
Until the fight is over. Because Malott makes one mistake, tries to get flashy with something, and he's going to sleep.
Yeah. One thing I will say before we move on is, and I'm glad that Alan McDonald kind of set this up, the division at welterweight, we had this influx of, I don't want to say young guys, because because Mike Malott himself isn't young, but fresh faces, where I feel like the division's safe for a while. The Neil Magny's, the Michael Chiesas, they're obviously still competitive and everything, but that's not the route we're going anymore. I was right. Look at these names. I was writing down names. Shavkat Rachmanov, Sean Brady, Jack Della Maddalena, Ian Gary, Hazmat Shemaev, if he's fighting the division, if he's fighting in general, who knows? Jeremiah Wells, Michael Morales, Gabe Monfin, Mike Malott. Those are all exciting guys that are kind of newer on the scene.
Yeah, and
I'm sure there's a couple guys I didn't mention.
And Malott stands out from them for being a few years older. I mean, he's 31 and being a relative newcomer to 170. Because the whole thing about Malott is you look at him and he's not the number one guy, but he's in the top three after Micah Miller and Will Chope for the, did that guy actually fight at 145? ? List. He is so big for a dude that used to fight at 145 pounds. This guy has an early career loss to Hakeem Dawodu. Hakeem Dawodu, he's not the tallest, but he's a burly 145. And Malott is a foot taller than he is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I love 30 C West mentioned Canadian Jesus. It'd be cool if Jesus came back as a Canadian, walking around with flannel shirts and love your neighbor A,
I mean, he'd be right back to healing people for free.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my political moment.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah. It would just be weird because it would take 3 years for you to get to meet Jesus so he could heal you.
There'd be a long line,
Before that, Danny Ige took on Nate Landwehr, and I thought Danny Ige was fantastic, but I want to say something. Obviously, I think Johnny Anik is the best there is. Other than my partner here, Ben, he could do a fantastic job. But he's great, and I understand. He has to be the company man. He's got to say things. He always got to talk up positive every single fighter. He said something that I thought was really. He said, based on the performance tonight, it wasn't Landwehr's night, but he proved that he can hang with the top 15 in the world. And I'm like, no, I actually think he proved that he couldn't because he got absolutely trashed.
Yeah, and that's against somebody in Ige that he hadn't been in free fall, but he'd definitely been progressing to mean. I said on the preview that I feel like we kind of saw Ige's ceiling, even though you and I both picked him to win this fight handily. We've seen what happens when Ige takes on a fighter in the upper reaches of the top 10. and Landwehr looked out of place against him. No, this was a very much, maybe this was the most levels to this fight on the entire card.
Yeah, that's right. That's why, like, I understand there's got to be a narrative, but it should be like somewhat true. Like, it shouldn't be the complete opposite. I mean, Ige looked good. I mean, he was faster. He obviously was more accurate. Showed a lot of power. I love the body work. I love that he was always constantly cutting angles. And then Landwehr, I really felt like he fought he had this controlled. I'm going to control. I'm going to fight completely different than he normally does. And to me, that's not how you're going to win, because you're not as skilled, you're not as powerful, you're not as good as an athlete, et cetera, et cetera. The only way you were going to win that matchup is if you just out-volume him and pressured him and put him in a bad place, because wow, this guy just keeps coming at me, turning it into a dogfight.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't think that was going to work. I thought it was a great matchup for Ige, but that was your avenue for victory. It's it's third down, it's 3rd and 25, and you hand it off to the running back. Like, if you want to, you got to throw it down the field.
Beautiful. I love that you said that, because that's the play that you call when you're ahead. And Landwehr fought like he was the favored fighter, and he was the winning the rounds.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. Like, no, that's a good point.
No, I love your assessment of that. And man, Ige is awesome. Like, again, we've seen his ceiling against the truly elite of the division, but south of that, his fights are always fun. He never backs down from anybody, and he is a smart, well-coached fighter. Like,
yeah, he's good. I like Ige too. He's fun.
Like, yeah,
and I thought he looked good.
And sounds like the UFC booth caught up to something you and I have been saying. Ige has underrated power.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he's not a one-shot knockout guy, but when he lands clean on anybody, even the people that have beaten him, it makes them readjust their game plan.
Yeah, he's an underrated wrestler. I mean, he's very accurate. It just, that division is, I mean, there's so many good fighters, so that's what it comes out to.
And he's stuck as a tweener, because, like,
yeah, I would guess so. I wouldn't count him out though. Like, I could see him rising, but I'm not predicting that, because of how loaded the division and the guys above him are. So, I mean, it's a run to get up there. But
I even meant stuck as a tweener, like, in terms of weight class, because he's on the smaller side for a featherweight. But if you've ever been face to face with him, but if you're stuck face to face with him, he doesn't look like a bantamweight. Okay. It would take a serious reinvention, and so he's kind of stuck as a smaller featherweight. But the other featherweights that are kind of around his size, like Emmett, Evloev, Volkanovski, do something at a super, super elite level.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you saw it tonight. You saw Landwehr was a lot bigger than him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So what would you do with him? Because he's tough, because he's fought the guys above him. He's fought a lot of these, it's hard to match him up because he's fought these guys.
Stick him in with a guy that is on his exact same, well, not exact same, but similar career track, like doing surprisingly well, but not in the title picture. Give him Alex Caceres. He fought just a couple weeks ago.
As soon as you were doing your build up, I knew exactly who you're picking, because I had the same exact person.
Yep.
So we have it. We give the UFC that matchup. I said, like co-main event on a fight night.
I think that's completely acceptable. I mean, Caceres is a very recognizable name. He's one of the more recognizable names outside of the top 10 of his divisions. He's sort of becoming the new Clay Guida type.
Yeah.
And Ige is in that category. I mean, Ige is nowhere near the Donald Cerrone level of celebrity, but he's going to be a guy who is sneaky popular despite not contending for a title.
Yeah. And Alex Caceres is always good on media day, so someone can ask him what he thinks about a certain fight, and he can always say, I don't watch MMA. And then the next time he fights, they're going to ask him that again, and he's going to say the same answer. Like, I don't know that guy. I don't really watch MMA. So before that, your boy Eric Anders took on Marc-Andre Barriault in this weird, respectful grudge match where Barriault apparently has been calling for a fight with Eric Anders for like 3 years, but then when they got to fight each other, there was no trash. They were very respectful to each other, and really fun fight. I'll say that.
Anders was one nut shot away from having to change his nickname.
Well, that's not. Can I get a political one in there too? Because that's not necessarily the case.
That's me saying the politically incorrect thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. um, I'll say this. So Mark Andre Barry is a nice little run right now. He's got some good speed for the division. He's got some power. The difference between he was faster. He was landing the harder shots, and he had more variety. Like he throw like he did a lot of the same side attacks. He throw a leg kick and then throw a punch right after on the same side. It was kind of getting Anders to guess. What I thought Anders looked good despite losing. And what I mean by that is he like he put himself in a position to almost sneak out a victory. Like the optics was on his side because he was pressing Barrio back, get him fighting against the cage, got snuck in a takedown here and there. He was throwing way more volume than we've really ever seen. And like he gave him, despite having less skills than the guy he's going against, he put himself in the best position. This is how Nate Landwehr should have fought, how Eric Anders did. Unfortunately, Eric Anders is 185-pound guy, older, has a lot of wear and tear, and couldn't sustain it. But I thought he won the second round just by pressure.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because even though I got the result of this fight right, I feel like I got the temperature of the fight wrong, because I would not have picked Barrio to be the one to run out to the early lead, hurt Anders early, and Anders to come back in the middle of the fight. I figured it would be the opposite, that Anders might hurt Barrio early and then Barrio takes over. So in a loss, it was actually a pretty good look from Eric Anders. Like I agree. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I just sometimes this guy's more skilled than you and got more physical. Like, Anders has declining skills, but to me, he put those declining skills in the best avenue of victory for him tonight. Like he used them well. So the main card I thought was actually pretty good. We'll get to the prelims. The headlining prelim fight, Nasruddin Imavov taking on Chris Curtis, ended in a no contest. Obviously, this completely sucks. I honestly don't want to harp on this too much. I'll say before that, this sucks more for Imavov than it does Curtis, because Imavov was looking fantastic. He was doing everything right. I mean, obviously there was a huge size difference. We knew that was coming into this fight.
Sure.
But he was faster. He was using his length right, throwing everything straight. And what I loved,
and he wasn't getting tired.
He wasn't getting tired. Well, I mean, it was still early in the fight, but yeah, it didn't look like it. And what I loved, when Curtis was getting into the pocket where Curtis does his damage with his uppercuts, his hooks, his body shots, he was getting inside. Instantly, Imavov was grabbing him, wrestling him. He took him down once. Would never let him even get off. He looked brilliant until they clashed heads.
Yep. And that's this is becoming a Chris Curtis trademark, and it's not the kind of thing you want to become known for. But I mean, he's at 185 in particular. He's always the shorter fighter. He kind of comes in swinging, where his head is up, like it's not tucked into his shoulders, but he's kind of looking down. And these incidental collisions where neither guy is really looking at it, like it's nobody's fault, but it's Chris Curtis's problem.
Yeah, and yes, because of his size, it's going to happen. Also, the left-handed, southpaw versus orthodox and all this stuff, and it sucks. But I'll say this about Chris Curtis: I like Chris Curtis. I've seen him fight. Yeah. I've seen him fight a million times at local shows. He for a West Coast guy, he fought in the East Coast, specifically in New England. When I was, I mean, I still go to shows here and there, but I was going to a lot of shows back in the day. And just a great dude. And I'll say this: I don't know if anybody's ever tried to fight, like when they're stopping a fight, like try to get to not stop. Like that was genuine. That wasn't like, oh, I want the fight stopped, no contest. I'm not gonna take a loss in the fight I was losing. I truly believe that he wanted to finish that fight.
I completely agree. That was my impression, that he legitimately wanted to end the fight, or not, finish the fight. Yeah, he wanted to continue, and that's incredibly admirable, because he had to know he was losing. Like he's a veteran of like 40 or 50 fights. He knew it was not going his way, but somewhere in his mind, he's like, this fight is not over until that final bell rings. I don't care if I'm about to go behind 2-1, I can beat this dude. That's an incredibly admirable
Yeah.
like mentality. Like think, and it's unfair of me to make this comparison, but I'm going to make it anyway because that's me. But think of Alexander Romanov lying on his back, asking the ref, if the fight ends now, is it a no contest or is it a
Yeah.
technical
Yeah.
decision?
Diego
Because
Sanchez.
he knew he
Yeah.
was ahead on the scorecards,
Yeah. Diego Sanchez.
but he was tired of shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, Chris Curtis rules.
Yeah. He's
But
the
having
guy.
said that, this outcome was the best for him. I agree with you.
Yeah. I know Chris Curtis is like a nerd. He likes to play video games and stuff.
Yeah.
He's the guy. He's playing video games and he's playing Madden with someone online, and the score is 50-10, and he's getting crushed. But he's still finishing that fourth. He's not pulling the plug out. He's still finishing that fourth
He's
quarter.
not pulling the plug. Alan McDonald asked, yeah, there was a horrible cut in his eyelid, but that was the opposite eyelid. That wasn't the side of his head he got hit on.
I thought it was.
Well, no, sure? No, sorry, no, it's the left side of his head hitting Imavov's right temple. No, you're right. Like the cut was on the side where he got hit, so it might have been caused or at least worsened by the collision.
Yeah,
the cut was on his left eyelid.
But regardless, even like the head, I mean, you get concussions and and then also think about this for a second. Curtis, a lot of people argue he lost his last fight because of a headbutt. He gets the same situation again, and he's like he wants to fight through it. The guy's super tough. Yep. Just run it back. Is that what you want to do?
I would say like my next matchup for these two is each other again, because Curtis deserves another chance and Imavov deserves a clean win over a top 15 guy before he moves on to whatever's next.
Yeah.
Because he was well on his way to a win that would have answered a lot of the questions about him. A win where he survived 15 minutes against a dangerous finisher, where he fought against a smaller, faster guy and didn't get tired. And he was willing to wrestle early on. Like it was turning into, he was going to be one of my biggest like bulls of the night. He deserves a clean version of that.
Yeah, I agree. I'd put him at like a co-main event on a good fight night card, or like, first or second fight on pay-per-view main card.
Yeah.
Before that, Miranda Maverick took on Jasmine Jasudavicius. I'm sorry, I know I butchered her name. Who won by unanimous decision. Jasudavicius. So you picked the this is a big upset. You picked the upset. I didn't pick the upset, but I was on the same thing saying like the lines were real off, that I was almost on the fence of taking the upset. I bitched out, but you did. Jasudavicius looks fantastic. Like she won't be the person that you go over to like not an MMA website, but you go to just like sports website like ESPN or
when Maxim.com puts up like 12 hottest women of MMA, Jasudavicius isn't there, even though she's a lovely woman.
She's very lovely.
She's very lovely, but like her like outward appearance and her actual fight style, neither of them have huge sizzle.
Yeah, and I wasn't even talking about like her outward. I just mean like when you go to Sherdog, we talk about all the fights. Like that's what's gonna happen. You go to these other MMA websites. First of all, shame on you for doing that. But if you do, obviously we're just joking. We have a lot of friends at other websites, but they're gonna talk about these fights. You go to the ones that aren't. They're sports sites. They cover a little bit. You go to ESPN, you go to Bleacher Report, you go to Yahoo. They're not going to mention her. Nope. But to me, of the people who fought tonight, she had one of the best showings because she won against a quality opponent, dominated her, and looks like she could be a problem to a lot of other people in the division.
Completely agree. And I said this on the preview. I've been underestimating her, and that was prior to picking her in a pretty major upset tonight. She's better than I thought, and Maverick's tendencies all play into what Jasudavicius does best. So more than getting the actual outcome right, because Maverick could have always won in like a real sketchy decision. I like that the fight played out kind of like I figured. Like Maverick couldn't help herself, and we ended up with a lot of sequences where Jasudavicius was just kind of bullying her as the bigger woman in clinch and wrestling situations. Jasudavicius is somebody who is already setting up as a fighter who leverages her own physical and skill advantages to their best possible success. Like when she runs into a woman who's remotely close to her own size and is faster and is a great striker, I think she's going to be in a ton of trouble. But as
Yeah,
long as smaller women want to try to wrestle her, she's going to beat them the hell up.
yeah, her size, her aggression. I mean, she was forcing
Yes.
Maverick back. Just even moments like just little things like I just gonna bite down my teeth and go forward and just overwhelm with volume just for this like next 15 seconds. Even if they don't land, it just looks good. Just little things like that. Her wrestling's fantastic. Her fight IQ. Um, like Miranda Maverick called for a fight with her, which was like, be careful what you ask for, because she was a tough stylistic matchup for a lot of people. Maverick really struggled to get inside with landing clean. She was never really set her feet. She was all over the place. She's just a terrible performance. She couldn't land any power shots. And then what I loved about Jasovicius was not just not strong takedown defense, but making your opponent pay when they take a bad shot. Like, you know me, I coach wrestling. I'm in the wrestling room at least 2 or 3 times a week. I love it. It's like, and one thing I constantly stress that if your opponent shoots, you make them pay for taking a bad shot. And one minute, DC kept talking about Moravec trying to like pull her across her body. Well, she was trying to shoot a high crotch, but she was going cross side on a high crotch, which is you can do. It's just more difficult. It's you kind of fake one side and then go across. You don't just shoot across, because if you do, you're sprawled out. It's different than when you. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. When you shoot a high crotch and they sprawl on the same side, you're on the corner. It's kind of hard to sprawl. But when you go across side, your body is underneath the person. And I love that Jess Vicious made her pay for the bad shots. I mean, and then she had some takedowns of her own later on. I mean, she looked like a Canadian Bo Nickel out there.
Ding, ding, ding. Mark that off your bingo cards, folks.
I want to match her up again. I want to see like I do. I think she's a bad matchup for a lot of people. So what would you do with her next?
You know what? Macy Barber and Amanda Hebus are fighting in a couple weeks. I like her against. I mean, at this point, she's I think 3-1 in the UFC. Her one loss has aged incredibly well, as the woman who beat her hasn't even lost in the UFC yet. I think she's 3-0 in the UFC. Jasovicius, you could make a case that she's looking like a top 15 talent in a wide open 125-pound division. Give her women who are in that same realm. So yeah, Barber versus Hebus. You could give her the winner, or if it's more about timing than anything, if the winner of a competitive fight has like a bad cut or something, give her the loser.
Yeah. The person I came up with, I kind of went a similar route. I then what she did tonight, she took out like a hot budding prospect. I'm going one that's get even more hyped than Miranda Maverick. As long as she's still fighting, because she hasn't fought forever. But I'm actually against Tracy Cortez. Like, you can't keep protecting Tracy Cortez. She needs a tough matchup. Jasovich is a real tough matchup. That's what I would do.
I like that. I mean, if they can get Tracy Cortez back into the cage and get her to sign to that, I like that competitively. I mean, she's ranked higher. She's on a good win streak.
She's undefeated.
And no tape study off the cuff, I probably favor Jasovicius there, because Cortez is on an impressive win streak, but at least one of those wins was not a good decision. And in several of the others, she's kind of been by the skin of her teeth. Someone who comes in with smart game plans like Jasovicius, like that's a trap right there.
Yeah, I agree. We're gonna save some time on this next fight because I mean, what is it? Talk about Amos Hobby took on Arichi Lang. Amos Hobby starched Arichi Lang, winning by first row knockout. I mean, he just caught him perfectly. He hit him one shot, kind of got him off balance, and then just caught him with a short left, knocked him out, plunked him. That's not what Zahabi or anybody from TriStar is known for, one punch knockout. But you know what? This is what I thought of. Yeah, I picked that fight wrong. I think I had a terrible on that my picks. But the first thing
we both got the first 4 fights on this card wrong.
There you go.
Like leading up to this one. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what I thought of was, you know what? Good for Zahabi. Like, to have a moment like that you don't have, but then have it in your home country, good for you.
If you're going to fight once a year, knock somebody out in a minute in your home country. It's the most efficient way to like make your money and you know get like your due accolades from the fans. Yeah, I picked Aoriqi Lung to win this one. You picked him to win this one. Aoriqi Lung was a bit of a favorite here, but Zahabi just showed something that he hasn't really shown in his UFC career, and good for him, man.
Yeah. Before that, Kyle Nelson, with his back against the wall, possibly on the cut list, saves himself by beating Brian Builder by unanimous decision. Not, yeah, I'm not getting excited about Kyle Nelson or anything. Like, it wasn't the most talented fight. But what I'll say about this, he was bigger. He outworked, especially late, the second and third round. He outworked Builder. He grinded him against the cage, won positions. He was more tactical. I thought he did everything right. And what I loved is anytime Builder would have a couple moments, Nelson would it didn't go as long as it seemed like it was going to go. Like, Builder starts having some moments and it was like, oh, okay, he's going to start turning this around. And Nelson stopped it immediately. It got to a clinch, grind into him, or landed a big shot himself, or kicked out his leg. Hit 2 or 3 kicks in a row and just then Builder never got the momentum going. And then you saw late in the second, third round, he was really struggling, frustrating. Again, I'm not getting too excited about Kyle Nelson, but yeah, solid victory for him.
Solid victory, and it was an inspired performance by Nelson and a miserable performance by Builder that I'll elaborate on in a second. Kind of meeting in the middle. I mean, kind of a, I don't know, Frank Mir, Ian Freeman thing where the more talented younger fighter fought poorly, more talented younger undefeated fighter fought poorly, and the kind of scrappy mid-level journeyman put on one of his career best performances. Yeah, I love Nelson's performance. Nothing I say here is meant to take away from that because he put his size advantage to good use. He didn't make any mistakes, but Builder, whenever you take your first loss, it's always instructive to see how it happened and how you react afterwards. I don't know how he reacted afterwards, but in the moment, he didn't make any adjustments as he had to know. Well, he knew he was losing his fight because he has the most like suck up entourage corner of all time, just telling him he's the greatest thing ever. And even they were telling him, dude, you've probably lost the first 2 rounds. You need to like do something different. And yeah, so not a great look for Builder. Ironically, if your name is Builder, you better not lose the second and third rounds of a fight.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah,
which used to be his thing, but yeah, I just thought he looked bad. But
yeah,
good for Kyle
look
Nelson.
bad. Good for Kyle Nelson. He got his moment in the sun, got his moment on the mic. That is more UFC mic time than he may get for the entire rest of his career. So good for him, man.
Yeah. Before that, David Dvorak took on UFC newcomer Steve Erceg. Erceg won a unanimous decision. I was so impressed by Erceg. We talked about it on the previous show. It's really hard to grasp his skills because he had so many early stoppages and low level competition. That was not the case. He went deep in the fight. Obviously, they went through a decision. He took on a highly ranked opponent, ranked in the UFC rankings and the Sherdog rankings. And David Dvorak took the fight on 8 days' notice. Early on, he looked good, and then Dvorak was starting to catch him and beat him to the punch. And I was like, okay, Dvorak's got his timing. And this is going to be, well, Erceg looks like he's UFC quality. Like, this is the guy who's got experience on him and higher fight. That's what it seemed like. But I just love Erceg. There was like no panic on him. Even when he was losing, he continued that game plan. I'm pressing him. I'm going to have my moment. And then he did. He landed a high kick, and that changed the entire fight. Oh, he hit him with a one shot, hurt him, and then hit a high kick immediately after, and then took over in the third. Yeah, I thought Erceg looked fantastic.
He looked sensational. It was a great performance by Erceg. Same as talking about the Builder versus Nelson fight. None of this is meant to take away from what he achieved, but Dvorak coming into this fight, we knew he was on a 2-fight losing streak, but they were both 2 top 5-ish fighters. So for all we knew, he was the 6th or 7th best flyweight in the world and had just been matched hard. But here, he looked good in spurts and in moments. But Usyk belongs in the UFC, but a year from now or 18 months from now, I'll be interested to see how well this fight, this win for him ages. Because it may be that Dvorak goes 1-3 in his next 4 and gets cut from the UFC, having gone like 1-6 or something. And Usyk is all of a sudden just considered a top fighter on his own merits. So I don't know how this will age, but in the moment, Usyk looked fantastic and Dvorak did not look good. You're mute, Keith. I'm not sure why.
Oh, sorry. It's tough because he should be still kind of slowly working his way up. But when you take a ranked opponent, you're probably going to continue to take on ranked opponents. I came up with Cody Durden. Cody Durden's had a nice run in that division. He's extremely tough. That's what I'd match him up with next.
It's interesting you mentioned that because Usyk, again, was probably going to make his debut in the UFC sometime this year, and they were going to match him against some completely unranked dude, probably fresh out of the Contender Series, but all of a sudden he beat a top 10 guy. I'm like, well, who can they match him against that's a lateral-ish move but doesn't have any upward momentum either? And I said, the guy that was supposed to be here, Matt Schnell, throw him in there.
Oh, Schnell, that works.
Yeah, Usyk versus Schnell 4 months from now.
Yeah, that works. And before that, Diana Belvita took on Maria Oliveira. Belvita winning by unanimous decision. To me, just so many bad things going on. This one, Oliveira looks so, for someone who's supposed to be a striker, she looks so raw on her feet, like just arm punching and didn't like any pressure. And then Belvita, it was nice her getting a win, but until she learns how to stop some takedowns, like she's not going to go far in the UFC. Like I'm probably picking against her next fight.
Well, I was ready to laugh, and thank goodness I didn't tweet about it when the UFC booth was saying that Diana Belbita, former Glory kickboxing champ, man, she better find a way to get this thing to the ground. But damn if they weren't right, because Belbita's best moments.
You broke up for a second. You said the UFC booth said.
Oh, they said that Belbita, former Glory kickboxing champ, her best chances in this fight were to get the thing to the ground. And I'm glad I didn't make fun of that publicly, because damn if they weren't right. Belbita's best moments of offense were when she got Oliveira to the ground. So good on Oliveira that she clearly had a speed and power advantage against a former, quote, high-level kickboxer or world-class kickboxer. Bad that a former high-level kickboxer took her down with ease, because 115 isn't super deep, but there are plenty of women in that division that are licking their chops for her, saying,
oh yeah,
yeah, like
agreed.
I mean, just to quote or just to mention somebody that, for all I know, may have washed out of the UFC and is definitely struggling. The official protein snack of the Shillan and Duffy show, Ariane Carnelosi, probably would have taken down Oliveira in all 3 rounds tonight and won a fight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would take Carnelosi over both these fighters.
Yeah,
pretty easily. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. The Bulls, the Bears, the cut list, the Dude Seriously, the awards, all that stuff. Do we have the awards?
We do have the awards. We have a fight of the night, and we have 3 performances of the night. If you are watching this, you may already have seen the reports, or you may be watching the post-fight presser. So instead of guessing who won, let us know who you think would win. Give us a fight of the night. Give us 3 performances of the night. We'll throw some up on screen while I make Keith guess.
Do you agree with the picks?
I'm fine with all of them, and I'm glad they gave a 3rd performance of the night, because if they gave only 2, it would have been tough.
Okay, so Charles Oliveira for sure. You stop Beneil Dariush the first round, you get it. Amin Zahabi was like seconds knockout. And Mike Malott, because he was the star of the night. As far as a fight's tough. Definitely not the main event though. It could be Ige Landwehr, but I'm actually gonna go with Anders and Barrio. That was a lot of fun. So those what I would pick. I'm not guessing though. Those what I would pick. What would you pick, Ben, before you tell us what they were?
Okay. I would have given the exact same as you, but having said that, I like what the UFC actually did better. So hooray for the UFC. In a random broken clock is right twice a day, blind squirrel finds an acorn a couple times moment, the UFC came up with better bonus picks than I did. Your fight of the night was, in fact, Marc-Andre Barrio versus Eric Anders, which, I mean, for me, that was kind of the only close fight of the night that had actual swings of momentum back and forth.
Yep.
And then your performances of the night, Charles Oliveira, again, easy one. Mike Malott, if you don't give that, the Vancouver crowd is rioting. And instead of Ayman Zahabi for the gnarly knockout, they give it to Steve Urseg. How often does the UFC give a performance bonus that's not a finish? I don't know when the last one is, but it may literally have been a year ago.
Yeah. Coming in that short notice. And yeah, but now Ayman Zahabi is probably like, are you kidding me? I had the quickest knockout,
Like they're all like, don't encourage Zahabi. Make him fight 2 or 3 times a year if he wants more money.
Yeah.
Dude, if you give Ayman Zahabi his purse plus his win bonus plus $50K for showing up once a year, he's going to keep doing that for another 5 years. So I like this.
You might not see him for 3 years.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to let's do dude seriously. Do you have any dude seriouslys?
I have 4 of them.
All right.
Several may be ones that other people have, but okay. Blake Builder, you're cruising towards the first loss of your professional career. You know you're cruising towards the first loss of your professional career. With a minute left, you throw your hands up in the air and taunt your opponent. And with like 20 seconds left, you do this Pernell Whitaker like bob around at the waist thing while your opponent is 6 feet away. Like if you're trying to save face, it's not working. If you're trying to taunt your opponent into doing something wrong, it's not working. But either way, bad look for your first professional loss. Like Blake Builder, dude, seriously? Maria Oliveira, you're fighting in the UFC. It is not your first fight in the UFC. When you're at the Manscaped pit stop or whatever they call it, when the ref like gropes you, they have to take the fake lashes off your eyes. Dude, seriously, is seriously for your team. Who the fuck let you out of the green room that way?
Yeah, I had that same one of mine. I cut somebody. I think it was Marcus Mustin had it on his too. Yeah.
No, that was some extra Bush League stuff. Dev Goes Fishing. Dev Goes Fishing, by the way, welcome to the Sherdog team. I'm glad that we are resurrecting your podcast. Check the Kick on the Sherdog Radio Network. But
he's on. Hold on. He has his own show.
He has his own show coming up, and if it means that he's all of a sudden too good to sub for us, he's fired immediately. But
I didn't know that. Well, first of all, congratulations. It's like, dude, it's like our kid.
Our kid. Speaking of which, like my actual kid Adam is going to be next to me in 2 weeks, I think. Anyway.
Oh, there you go. But I'm saying is this like what's like a spinoff? Like is he like our Better Call Saul to Breaking Bad? Is that what it is?
He's our Better Call Saul. He's our House of Dragons. He's our
all right.
Yeah. He's our Joni Loves Chachi.
If we're Breaking Bad, I mean you're probably Walter White. And that means I'm the junkie Jesse. Okay.
All I want now is a machine gun in the trunk of like my my Kia Optima. Like but yeah, he mentions it. Poor Beneil Dariush is having the worst night of his professional life. His title shot going up in smoke. He doesn't know where the fuck he is aside from maybe Canada. I don't know. He leans back against the fence and the cage door is open and he spills halfway out of the cage and they have to prop him back up. Dude, seriously, whoever opened the cage door and then whoever leaned them against that section of the cage.
Yeah.
And my last one, Jaron Villel. Okay.
Oh, no. You're still my other one.
So everything, okay, I don't know what you're going to call him out for, so it might be different, but everything I said about Canadian radio on the preview, Canada does the same thing with refs, apparently. They want good refs for the main card, but they also want an equal number of Canadian refs for the undercard, and they're not sure which side to put Jaron Villel on, but Villel, you're Canada's most experienced ref. You're an actual former professional fighter. How do you look so terrified in the cage? Like, I don't get it at all. Like, Jaron Villel spent probably a half hour in the cage tonight looking like he just wandered into the wrong bathroom. Like, eyebrows up to here, like, he looked like Shoney Carter selling the double KO in whatever promotion that was. Yeah, come on, Jaron.
Shoney Carter taught me how to play blackjack. If you remember that. Oh, was it black? No, I'm trying to think. Maybe it wasn't blackjack.
I don't remember what it was, but I've seen stills from it. Anyway, I told you that when I saw him at I saw him at I was at like Mohegan Sun. He was there for like the Was he playing like Baccarat or something?
Oh no! I see now. I'm questioning. No, it wasn't roulette. Was it craps? Maybe might have been craps.
What was it, dice or cards on the table?
No, I don't remember now because
Oh, wow.
I've played a lot of I've
He
played a
he was
lot.
too busy trying to see if, like, Shoney was wearing, like, his little, like, Speedo with all the flags on it.
Yeah, no, he was there. No, I think it was blackjack actually, and I was a young kid, and Shoney Carter was. I'm like, dude, Shoney Carter, and he started something, and he started playing cards, and he started teaching me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I told you this story. I didn't tell you this story.
No, like,
Oh
we'll
yeah,
bring
Miss
that up in the
International
preview.
taught me
Yeah.
how to play. Like, obviously, I wasn't that good of a student if I don't remember what
What
he
game it
taught me.
was?
Yeah, I thought I'm all screwed up. I think now I'm thinking it might be craps. I don't remember. Okay, I was going after Jared Villel, but mine was when he told Eric Anders, "Hey, I'm going to give you 1 second. I'm going to give you a second to after getting kicked in the nuts. Like, I'm going to give you a second, okay?" And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "So you ready to go?" Like
Literally a
he
second?
literally gave him a second. DC called him out that too. Like, dude, seriously. You already got me. You already got the fake eyelashes. Say that one too. I'm gonna go back to this entire week. I'm calling out the entire media this week because did we have to have every question asked to every single fighter during media day? Like, hey, what do you think of Canada? Hey, what do you think of the Canadian crowd? Hey, are you excited to come back to Canada? Hey, did you get any maple syrup? Did you like every question had to do with Canada? Like, come on, guys. Like, come up with some better questions. Like, dude, seriously? like you ask a Canadian fighter, like, are you excited to fight in your hometown? They gotta go, no, actually not. I was actually hoping to be in like the the PI. Like I wanted to fight in Vegas with no crowd. Like, of course, I gotta say they're excited.
Yeah, like,
All right, Cutlass. What do you have for your Cutlass?
well, I already mentioned it off the top, like, every woman in the UFC that can't weigh in at 136 pounds or less is probably toast. Uh, aside from that, I'm not sure I have any because none of the losers were on bad losing streaks or like 1-4 in their last 5. Like, this might be my rare card with like no cut list whatsoever.
Yeah, I have one. The guy who works at the Rogers Center who installed that railing, that guy needs to be cut.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Whoever installed that needs to be cut. I mean, he's probably some contractor that there's no way to find him now, but
Yeah.
we're lucky that that's the only railing that went down because I don't know if you watched this, but every time they showed a live shot of kind of the arena and the crowd, it did not look full. Like, even as late as like third fight from the top that had the highest build Canadian fighter, it was looking pretty empty. And then for the main event, the upper bowl was empty and the lower bowl was like 3/4 full. So a lot of people clearly went over the railings
Whatever.
to get better seats. And yeah,
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I did see the video where the railing broke, and dude, how about Malat? He was so full. He didn't notice like 20 people fall right in front next to him. He was that like focused.
yeah, the guy had tunnel vision and probably good
Yeah,
for him.
yeah. All right, let's get to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and Bears are a stock market reference. You want to be on the Bulls list, you don't want to be on the Bears list. We do it 3, 2, 1, like hockey. Do you want to do Bulls or do you want to do Bears first?
Let's do Bulls. I feel like being charitable to this mid card. Yeah,
All right. You mind if I go first?
go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the guy that already gave a performance bonus, Steve Urseg. You take a fight on 8 days' notice. You win over a ranked fighter in UFC debut. I mean, you're right in the mix now. So Steve Urseg is my number 3 bull. My number 2, Charles Oliveira. I mean, he had an incredible performance. Right, he went a guy who, people were actually questioning, and rightfully so. Like, could he be done? How bad he got dominated by Islam Makhachev. Instead, he puts on an incredible performance. Everyone's calling for him to get a title shot again. And he got a huge pop from the crowd. And my number 1, after I just gave the media shit about Canada, it is exactly what 30C West just said. The Canadian fighters, if you count Diana Balbita, because she trains in Canada and she's been living in Canada for a couple of years, if you count her as a Canadian, the Canadians went 6-0 on the night in Canada. Obviously, Mike Malott being the biggest one, he's an absolute star. Jasovicius looks like I said, looks like a problem for a lot of fighters in the division. Belbita's really hot. Mark Andre Barrios on a nice run. Kyle Nelson saved the job, and Eamon Zahabi had a fantastic knockout, but didn't get paid for it. So those are my bulls. What do you have?
You know what? I agree with all of yours. I don't think I need to add anything to them, but I will underscore that not only did Canadian fighters go 5-0 plus Diana Belbita, but outside of Belbita, they all like stepped up to the moment. It was people like Kyle Nelson winning as like serious underdogs. It was people like Eamon Zahabi winning in ways we had not seen him do before. It was Mike Malott, winning a fight he was supposed to win, but then snatching the mic and doing some work that like is going to pay dividends for him in terms of star power later on if he can keep winning. Like it was an incredible night for Canadian fighters. Good for them.
All right, let's go to the ones who had a bad night. So you don't want to be on this list, Ben. I'll let you go first.
Okay. If he had lost, I would have had Charles Oliveira number 1 on my Bears list. I'm going to throw Beneil Dariush in here because Charles Oliveira had a good chance tonight if he lost in any way or if he won just a ho-hum, nip-tuck fight of certifying himself as a never-again title challenger. But instead, he, punched his ticket. Dariush, this might be the last time we see him in a fight that could even be argued as a title eliminator. He had an incredibly long road to get here and got so little chance to prove what he could do. Like, it was a bad look for him. I'll throw again. Also, Blake Builder, I already threw him on my dude serious list. All I'll say is, hey, anytime you lose your first fight, well, everybody not named Khabib Nurmagomedov and a few other names loses a fight sooner or later. The nuance is in how you react to it in the moment and how you react afterwards. I don't know yet how he'll come back from this, but in the moment, it looked like a guy who, in terms of training, was not prepared for adversity. And in terms of emotion and mindset, was not prepared for adversity. That's alarming, especially in a guy that at 32 isn't really a prospect and has a narrow window to get stuff done in. Other one I'll throw out, Chris Curtis. Like, kind of similar thing that I said about Dariush. This might be the last time Chris Curtis fights a fighter this highly ranked, unless it's Imavov again. Like, regardless of the official result, I think we kind of saw his ceiling at 185.
All right. So you had Dariush, Curtis, and I'm sorry, who else?
I did Dariush, Curtis, and Builder.
Oh, Builder. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure. I always like to cross off one so I don't use the same one as you. Mine. I'm gonna go Eric Anders. Even though I thought he looked good, the guy's lost 4 out of 5 fights. So obviously his stock is down. My number 2, David Dvorak. He's now lost 3 in a row. This time to an unranked fighter. He's obviously way out of a title picture or anything like that, going the wrong way. And my number 1, she's now lost 3 out of 5 fights. Hasn't looked good. She was a prospect that a lot of people were high on. She called for a fight with Jasmine Jasovicius, me too. And Miranda Maverick she's got a lot of holes in her game and doesn't look like the fighter that a lot of people thought she was. So she's my number 1 bear tonight, Miranda Maverick. So, all right. What was your grade for the card?
You know what? This is recency bias just in terms of like the last 6 hours, but I'm going to give it a B. I'm giving it a B. Charles Oliveira just putting together a decisive performance is kind of the best possible outcome from that fight. Just one or the other guys really stamping their ticket to title contention. And then Amanda Nunes, if this really goes down as her last fight, hey, it was a completely dominant performance. I give it 50-44 against the most deserving contender they could find. When you're that dominant in the women's divisions, that's sometimes what you got to do. South of that, there was some weirdness and some Canadian greatness, and it was just another card.
Yeah, I'm gonna go C plus. There wasn't a lot of stoppages, so there wasn't the most exciting. Even like the fight of night, you mentioned there was only one fight that was really competitive. So Nunes retiring at the end, I think saved the main event for me. Like I usually, I try to grade it with like, on a scale with like the main event. If that sucks, it pulls the grade down, further than a sucky prelim. But seeing Nunes retire on top in a dominant performance is, sentimental to me. So I'll give it like a C plus. Toughest question of the night always is, who is our listener? We had a lot of people in here chatting up, a lot of good ones. A lot of the top stars we always get: Marcus Mustard, 30C West, Chris Wiz, obviously Dev, Bass, Alan McDonald, 1 foot out the door. There's a lot of really good quality people. Who is your listener of the evening?
I mean, 1 foot out the door put together an incredible, like really clean performance. Alan, Boz, Scott, 30C West, like his usual, just like heavy barrage of comedy. But I'm actually going to throw it at somebody that is new as of this week, or at least as of like the last month or so. Like, Ninja Kitty killed me all night, and I'm putting one of his or her quotes up here. Like a ninja, snuck in unannounced, unexpected, and slew me multiple times. So my listener of the night is Ninja Kitty.
All right, I'm gonna go with 30C West. It was between 30C West and 1 foot out the door. They both really good all night. I mean, everybody really was. So, congratulations to Dev for joining the team. Just don't have your show be better than ours and steal all of our listeners. All right, before we get out of here, I got to say one more thing. I did not have a good night making picks in Canada, but I will say this. 17 years ago, I made the greatest pick in Canada, as I got married to my wife 17 years ago. She is Canadian, so she's the best thing that ever happened to me. I love her very much. I want to wish her happy anniversary. And she's so great that she lets me watch UFC and do this show on our anniversary. So I love you, baby. You're the best.
It's literally your anniversary?
It's literally my anniversary, yes.
Dude, I'm not sure whether to put you on my Bulls or Bears list.
So there you guys have it. We'll be back. Vittori versus Cannonair next week. We'll be recapping all that. Make sure you check all that out. See you next week.